Hello, my name is Olamide. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, well, make sure that you like and subscribe, definitely subscribe to my channel. Don't know what you're waiting for. I'm gonna be posting videos more frequently, so you do not want to miss that. So one little thing about me is that I'm currently applying to go to medical school. Yes, I'm doing the whole thing. I am sending out a bunch of applications, slowly emptying out my bank account, and obsessing about things that are completely out of my control. But hey, I guess that's just part of the game. Through my journey of applying, one thing that I have to say is really surprising, well, maybe not surprising, but disappointing, is the amount of people that I see in these forums and YouTube comments that are easily willing to put down or discredit a person of color for getting medical school applications or for getting into medical school. Many of these reasons is because maybe they have like a lower MCAT score, or I don't know, people just don't think that they're deserving of it. I don't know. I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. I see these comments, I want to respond with like madness and aggression, but that is just overall not productive. So in this video, we're going to respond with perspective and education. I cover 3 reasons why I think it is absolutely necessary for there to be an increased amount of Black people in medical schools. And these reasons can really just not be solved by having a 515 MCAT, and that's just the truth. So if you guys are interested, keep watching, like my video, subscribe to my channel, and let's get started. So first, I'm just gonna go right out and say it. First one is reparations. So when we think of reparations, I think a lot of people have this idea that it has to be money, like some type of check that we're waiting for, which I mean, check is always nice, but I think that a lot of reparations can just be solved by, having access, increasing the number of Black people and people of color who have access to the table, access to the same rights that people who are white or considered overrepresented in medicine have. And let's be real, a lot of the advancements in medicine came from the labor of Black lives. One of the most notable stories, actually there are many notable stories, which is what I'm going to get into this month, but one story that really resonates with me is the one of Vivian Thomas. Vivian Thomas literally changed the face of surgery, heart surgery. He was one of the first people in the world who was willing to attempt doing surgery on the heart, and it saved the lives of millions of people till this day. But he was largely getting paid a janitor's salary and never got any ounce of credit for it until way later on down in his life when he was literally approaching death, So that's just one story, and he honestly deserves his own episode, which I will have. But I guess the whole part of the story is like when you think of modern day gynecology, modern day surgery, modern day ophthalmology, modern day medicine, a lot of it came from Black lives. And during that time, a lot of these Black people did not get that same credit, did not have a chance to get access, did not get a chance to go to medical school. So one way that we can really feel like equality is being achieved in this country is by just equalizing the playing field for everybody. And I know that a lot of the comments in the forums and stuff say like, oh, the standards are way different for Black people compared to white people. The standards don't really matter, because when you look at the data, people who score in the range on the MCAT, people who score in the range of 549 to 504 compared to the people who score about a 505 to a 528, there's actually not a significant difference in their advancement in their medical school education. So you may think that you deserve a seat more because you have a 515, but your chances of getting through medical school is honestly no different than somebody who scored a 500 on the MCAT. You may think that, okay, I don't have a chance of getting into medical school because I have this MCAT score, but you would be surprised. You honestly just need to apply and have some confidence in yourself, have some confidence in your application. And I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry to say it, but your inability to not get into medical school is not because of us. But in terms of reparations, I guess what my summary on that is just that it's unfortunate of how many Black lives had to suffer in pursuit of creating medicine, a better medicine for you and for your family and for your loved ones. And so one form of reparations is increasing the access of Black people who can be at the table, who can actually be a part, who can actually get credit for the work that they've been putting in. Number 2, let's talk about the medical literature. People of color are needed in medicine because we actually need to be able to change what's written in the literature. A lot of you may be surprised, but there's a lot of things that you'll find in these books that really do a disservice to Black people. For example, let's talk about the kidney test. So there's this test that is run on your kidneys, just to simplify it a bit, but it basically compares the GFRs, which is like a function of your kidney. And for Black people, they multiply this number by, I don't even remember, like 6 or something. And by multiplying this number, it actually makes it seem that people of color have better functioning kidneys. So when it comes to Black people who actually need kidney transplants and need medications, they're less likely to be treated because of these GFR quantities shows that their kidneys are performing better than their white counterparts. Which is just crazy. Like, how can kidney function be determined by your skin color? And it all goes back to how people think that, students of color or people of color experience pain differently than people who are white. So Black people are not getting treated for their pain the same way that someone who's white will get treated for their pain. And this is just something that we see in the news often. Whether you're even a Black physician like Susan Moore, she's somebody who was killed in the hands of the healthcare system because they didn't want to believe her pain. They didn't want to believe her cries for help. So that's just in the medical system, but I'm talking about the medical literature. And there's a lot of things that kind of do a disservice, and that's in the literature that do a disservice for people of color, whether it's talking about pregnancy.
Black women in the United States are 3 to 4 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related complications than white women. Studies have shown that these inequities are related to socioeconomic factors, but also institutional and individual racism. For example, in 2017, tennis star Serena Williams experienced a pulmonary embolism after giving birth to her daughter, but initially, the team that was taking care of her dismissed her concerns. These implicit and explicit biases impact whether Black women attend their postpartum visits and could in part explain these racial disparities.
Talking about using pulse oximeters.
This is a pulse oximeter. It measures your blood oxygen saturation level and also helps guide medical decision making. But studies have shown that it doesn't treat all skin color equally. Because of differences in how the skin absorbs light, Black patients are more than 3 times as likely to have inaccurate, overestimated oxygen saturation levels compared to white patients. And that has clinical significance for COVID, since one of the main diagnostic criteria for COVID-19 is shortness of breath and low oxygen levels.
And especially dermatology. When you learn about what to look for in people so that you can tell if they're having some type of skin infection, what it looks like for people who are white will look different for people who are Black.
Here's an example. Lyme disease is a bacterial infection that can be carried by ticks and cause a characteristic bullseye rash. But medical students are often taught to recognize what it looks like on white skin, not dark skin. See the difference? If you Google Lyme disease bullseye rash, most of the images you'll see are all white. Under-recognition causes African Americans to be 10% more likely to show late manifestations of the disease, such as neurologic or heart problems.
But that's not something that's regularly taught in the school system because there isn't enough data. And who's going to do that data? The chances of somebody of color wanting to actually step up and do that data and see how diagnoses look differently in people with darker skin, it's going to improve. For example, there's already somebody in the UK and Europe, a medical student who's rewriting the literature so that we can actually compare how certain disorders look on darker skin compared to lighter skin. And this guy, he's just a medical student. He's not even a physician. So think of what more can change when we increase the number of underrepresented people in medicine. It's going to change the literature, and it's actually going to help you and others be more educated in understanding how to treat people of color. And when I say treat people of color, that doesn't mean our internal organs are treated differently than people who are white. It just simply means that how the skin presents on white people presents different on people who are darker. And that's something that should be taught a little bit further in the medical school curriculum. But it's not, because there just isn't enough science on that. And the last reason, and I probably think is one of the most important reasons, is the death disparity due to implicit bias. Truthfully, I don't think that most people in medicine are racist. I really don't think that, but I do believe that most people have an implicit bias. And I think that your bias can disproportionately affect people of color. For example, people who are overrepresented in medicine, so that means people who identify as white or Asian American, may have a little bit more compassion or empathy for people that look like them, which makes sense. You may have a little bit more compassion for people who look like you compared to, someone who's like Native American or African that comes in with a very thick accent that you find hard to understand. You may not have as much compassion for them. By increasing the number of underrepresented people in medicine, it actually can lead to a better overall experience for people of color in the healthcare system. And considering that we are dying at disproportional rates when it comes to COVID-19, pregnancy, surgical outcomes, and everything else, like this is really actually very important. And there are two ways how increasing the number of underrepresented people in medicine can actually benefit medicine. First, and most importantly, at a patient care standpoint, patients get the choice to choose who they want to treat them, which I think is important. You basically get to choose everything else in life. So I feel like if a patient wants to be able to be treated by someone they can really identify with better, I think that they should be given that option. And two, this can really change the implicit bias that we see in hospitals. Because, for example, let's say that you are, a white male and you don't really know anything about African culture at all. And you have a new colleague who is Nigerian. And your new Nigerian colleague loves to talk about her culture, loves to talk about how much she loves fufu and egusi and traditional weddings and just everything that really represents being Nigerian. And you learned so much about the African culture from your colleague. Now, you, as a white male, when you go and see Nigerian patients, you're always going to think about your Nigerian colleague and think about all that she's shared with you about culture, and you gain a better sense of cultural competency. So now when you talk to these patients, you have a little bit more compassion and understanding about, their roots and a little bit about where they come from. This is key for any type of race, whether your colleague is Latino or Native American or Hawaiian, you get to understand about people's cultures when you work with them. And then that overall displays a better patient care experience. And honestly, the same thing can be said vice versa. If you're in a medical system where all the doctors are Black, which is probably very rare, I would still say it's important to have people who are white and people who are Latino in that medical system as well. I just think that diversity as a whole needs to be increased, and that's a problem we see in medicine. And it's not that I'm asking for Black people to take over the field of medicine. We just honestly just wanted to represent the population. There are about 13% of African Americans / Black people in the entire US system, but only 5% of us are doctors. So let's just even out the playing field a little better. And I'm not just speaking as a future medical student. I'm just speaking as someone who's been a patient and who has family members with comorbidities and family members who have died in the care of physicians. I'm really just speaking for them. And I'm just also a little concerned because, the people in these forums and in these comments who are, putting down people of color are people who are potentially going to be my colleagues, people who are going to be treating my family members. And that is very concerning to me. So I guess I'm making this video because, just to offer a better perspective for people with these thoughts. I understand you have a perfect score and a perfect MCAT, a perfect GPA, and you think that you deserve the seat over somebody who doesn't have those perfect stats. But there's just so much more to medicine than your scores and standardized testing. A lot of it has to do with, humanities and your compassion and your empathy and your purpose, your reason why. So, and honestly, it's no secret that African Americans are significantly underrepresented in medicine. And I feel like you can't talk in your primary statements and your secondary essays about how you're in this field to help the underserved, but when you see the underserved get served, you are upset. You know, it's very contradictory. And honestly, if you are a person of color applying to medical school and you fall victim to the imposter syndrome that's not only in your head, but one that is spoken out to you through like these Twitter fingers and people on the internet, just know that you're a boss. You deserve to be in the position that you're in. And don't let anybody take that from you. And okay, maybe there's a chance that a school is accepting you because of the color of your skin, but you know what? You're finally at the table. So do something with that, you know? Make it easier for other people behind you to come forward as well. And honestly, prove people wrong. You gotta prove them wrong because you deserve this. You deserve it. So yeah, that's basically all I have to say about this. If you guys can think of anything else, or if you guys have anything to say on this matter, definitely comment it down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this subject. And yeah, let's just keep it going. Thank you guys for watching my channel. I'll see you guys next week or whenever I post my next video. It's going to be a really good month. I'm going to be posting some really cool videos. So please make sure to like and subscribe to my channel. All right.